The prison was unusually quiet that morning. Cold, gray walls towered above, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. The heavy iron doors groaned with every movement, and the distant ticking of the clock sounded louder than usual. It was the kind of silence that presses down on your chest, the kind that makes every heartbeat feel deafening. In cell 47 sat a man named Daniel Carter. A man the world had judged long before today. In just a few hours, his life would end. The papers had called him a monster. Television pundits had argued about his guilt endlessly. Debates raged about justice, punishment, and morality. But inside that small, dimly lit cell, there was no courtroom, no cameras, no shouting crowds. Only silence and regret. Daniel had spent 8 long years on death row. Each day blended into the next, and each night was filled with a heavy weight of loneliness and fear. On that final morning, Daniel sat on the edge of his narrow cot, staring at the floor, lost in thought. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the exhaustion of years spent in confinement. The guards knew him as quiet and reserved, but today, there was something different about him. There was a sense of peace, almost acceptance, in his eyes. And then, he made an unusual request, a request that stunned the warden and the officers alike. "I want to see Max," he said softly, his voice barely a whisper. "One last time." Max, a loyal German shepherd, had been his companion before his imprisonment. During those long, empty years, Max had been his one and only link to a life that once had warmth and freedom. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. Allowing a prisoner on death row to meet someone from the outside was almost unheard of, especially a pet. But something in Daniel's eyes spoke of a pure, sincere longing that went beyond fear and punishment. It was a request they couldn't ignore. The dog's tail wagged furiously, his ears perked up, and a low, excited whine escaped him. 8 years had passed, but he knew his master instantly. Daniel knelt on the floor, tears streaming down his cheeks, and embraced his loyal friend. Max nuzzled against him, resting his head on Daniel's lap, refusing to move. For the first time in years, Daniel felt warmth. He felt a fleeting sense of home and comfort in a place built for despair. The guards watched in silence, their hardened exteriors softening. In a room filled with steel and concrete, a small moment of humanity shone brighter than any punishment could ever extinguish. Daniel whispered to Max, words that only the dog could understand. He spoke of regrets, of the mistakes that had led him here, and of a love that had never faltered, despite the years of separation. Max responded with gentle nudges and quiet whines, a constant reminder that loyalty could survive even the darkest of times. Then, as the time for his execution approached, something extraordinary happened. Max refused to leave. He stood firm, his eyes locked on Daniel, his body tense but unwavering. The guards tried to gently pull him away, but Max wouldn't budge. It was as if the dog sensed the gravity of the moment, the finality of Daniel's fate, and was determined to stay by his side until the very end. Word of this touching moment soon spread beyond the prison walls. Reporters outside caught wind of the story. Viewers across the world were moved not by the crime Daniel had committed, but by the undeniable bond between a man and his dog. For a moment, people forgot about anger, judgment, and punishment. They were reminded that love, loyalty, and compassion could exist even in the most unforgiving places. As Daniel was led to the execution chamber, Max followed as closely as he was allowed. In those final moments, Daniel's fear vanished. There was no hatred, no anger, only a quiet strength born from the knowledge that he was not truly alone. Max had reminded him of the humanity that still remained, the love that could endure even in the coldest, darkest places. The guards later spoke of that morning as something they would never forget. They had seen prisoners filled with rage, despair, and defiance. But rarely had they seen something so pure and simpler. Manus' final connection to the one living being who had never judged him, who had loved him unconditionally. And though Daniel's life would end that day, the story of his final wish lived on. It became a story shared in newspapers, on television, and across social media. People wept for the prisoner, but they also smiled at the loyalty of a dog that had changed everything in his last moments. In the end, it was a reminder to the world. Love, even in the harshest circumstances, has the power to transform, to soften hearts, and to leave an indelible mark that death cannot erase. Daniel's last moments were not defined by fear or regret, but by the warmth of companionship and the knowledge that in his darkest hour, he had experienced the purest form of love. And Max, faithful to the very end, reminded everyone watching that true loyalty knows no bounds, not time, not circumstance, and certainly not death. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, Please like and subscribe for more content that explores the depths of the human spirit. We'll see you in the next one.